This episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Whether it's espresso machines, manual brewing devices, or general coffee shop needs, they seek to pursue the most innovative coffee products, both domestic and abroad, to offer their customers. Find out more at prima-coffee.com. This is Keys to the Shop, episode 68, a conversation with Rita Kaminski and Walach of Snowdrift Coffee. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. And my name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show. As always, I'm really excited to have you along to experience the value that our guests are going to bring. Talking with the founders of Snowdrift Coffee and Workspace in Roscoe, Illinois, talking about training, philosophy behind coffee and education, and all sorts of really useful and inspirational things. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. And before we dive into our episode today, I want to thank our sponsor at Keys to the Shop, and that, of course, is Prima Coffee. So Prima Coffee is a specialty coffee equipment supplier, and they're based here in Louisville, Kentucky, right here where the show is based. And since the beginning of their company, they've set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public. So their focus in that is on curating the best coffee equipment for every need, from grinders to espresso machines, under-counter fridges, pour-over setups, home equipment, commercial equipment, you name it. If you go to prima-coffee.com, you'll see what I'm talking about. There is just a ton of stuff that you are going to be able to peruse, and also resources that they provide on how to use the equipment properly, best practices, cleaning, things like that. So really educational at the same time. You know, they put a big emphasis on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. And, you know, I've used them for years. I've always been pleased working with them. I know you will too. So go to prima-coffee.com, make contact with them, talk with them about what you need for your cafe or for your home. And my thanks to Prima Coffee for supporting Keys to the Shop and all of us in the industry by providing us the tools we need to do our jobs well. All right, so today we're talking with Rita Kaminski and Walach, who are the founders of Snowdrift Coffee and Workspace, which is a coffee roastery and a educational center based in Roscoe, Illinois. A really cool company, two really cool people that run it. And I'm really pleased to have gotten an opportunity to sit down and talk with them about the company. Now, between the two of them, they have over 30 years of specialty coffee experience, professional specialty coffee experience. So let's start with Walach. He started his career in the industry, just like most of us, as a barista. And it wasn't long before he was taking on positions of management and cafe operations and leadership training roles. Ant has completed multiple certifications from the SCA and is certified to teach courses from Level 1 Barista, Level 1 Roaster Pathways, and in his previous work has really honed his palate as head of roasting and quality control. Ant has been involved with judging, most recently as head judge at the qualifier event for Brewers Cup competition, and has been an active judge for Brewers Cup both at the regional and national levels for the past 4 years, and currently serves on the subcommittee. Was also an observer judge in 2013 at the Guatemala Cup of Excellence. So, and has a lot of skill when it comes to specialty coffee, bringing that to the table at Snowdrift. And then Rita Kaminski, over 16 years of experience in specialty coffee, focusing primarily on operations management and training. You know, she has enjoyed positions on advisory boards and contributed to product development projects. Since 2006, she has been involved with barista competitions, and she's obtained experience as a judge and coach in regional, national, and international events. So Rita really has the skills, expertise, and mastery in her career to be able to successfully maintain cafes, retain happy employees, and provide a positive and rewarding customer experience. So you can tell just listening to the skill sets between the two of them that, Ant and Rita, they bring a ton to the table in terms of lessons learned over the years. And in today's conversation, we get to discuss what their philosophy is and their approaches to education. Now, when you're talking to somebody who has this much experience in the industry, you definitely want to listen because they've gone through different trends of thought in terms of training and education. They've had multiple successes and multiple failures to learn from over the years. And so that's exactly the type of people that I like learning from. And I hope that this is really a valuable conversation to you as we discuss their philosophy towards training and education and the purpose behind what they're doing at Snowdrift Coffee. So with that, let's bring you to my conversation with Rita Kaminski and Ant Walach of Snowdrift Coffee. Okay, Ant, Rita, welcome to Keys to the Shop.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to share your story and hear details about what you all are doing in Roscoe, Illinois. And right off the bat, I just want to ask, so Snowdrift Coffee and Workspace. What is the concept that you're doing up there in Illinois, and how did this all come together? This is kind of at the end, or at the beginning rather, really a new beginning of a long coffee journey for the both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to get started with how Snowdrift's got together. Snowdrift Coffee, it's just us. It's just Rita and myself. So we had the chance to really figure out exactly what we wanted for this company from the very beginning. And we're really focused on that work-life balance. So I think, for us, the background of not having that balance of work-life has really been the impetus for how we're going to structure Snowdrift. So with that, we're kind of we have three main sources of income revenue, right? So we can kind of spread that across the year. So we're doing farmers markets locally. We're also doing the roasting classes and then private label roasting as well. So with that, we can be out in the community doing the farmers markets. When the winter comes, we're able to focus on some other aspects as well in the company.
Nice. And so the company is all about roasting and education for the community. How would you describe to someone off the street, this is Snowdrift Coffee?
Well, I think Snowdrift Coffee, it's about having that input with the community. We really enjoy the interactions with people that are brand new to specialty coffee. Those little glimpses of, I get this, it clicks. I didn't know that, coffee was a seasonal fruit. It all starts from that first point. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to include that with our local community up here in Northern Illinois, while also still doing what we enjoy doing with roasting. And again, we have, our own line, but enabling us to roast more by opening up, to private label customers in that sense too. So we're able to not only educate the community with, in specialty coffee, but also continue our own education with roasting and learning different profiles and tweaking things specifically for customers.
Mm. And you do barista classes as well, or are going to be doing?
Currently, we are offering on-site barista training. We're still in the build-out process. So we will go on-site and are teaching barista classes there, and we'll have brewing classes in-house.
Nice. So bring us up to speed. What are your backgrounds in coffee? You've had, on the website, it says you have over 30 years of professional coffee experience.
Yeah. Yeah, when you put it like that, it's, it adds up to a little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
No, we've both been in the coffee industry for quite some time. I started out, actually at Ritual, back in 2007, think that was. And from there, it was barista work, and then getting into a little bit more of management and doing farmers markets with Gimme Coffee in New York, and then, coming back to the San Francisco Bay Area, with that extra, management and training experience, and getting into that education side of things with Sight Glass. And that just went to roasting with Linea and in Equator, and with all of those experiences, I'm really able to kind of hone in exactly where I wanted to go with Snowdrift.
Wow, no kidding.
It's an extensive history as well.
Ant's a little more well versed in the industry than I am. I've spent most of my years in cafe management or front of house work. Although customer satisfaction has always been really important and a huge part of training in my history, my true enjoyment for training and wanting to educate is that I really respect, I love the bean, but I also really respect all the resources that are needed to produce the coffee, and I find training to be really valuable when you are not only respecting the bean, but the equipment and the time and the energy. And that's my motivation.
Yeah, it makes me want to ask, if you all could elaborate on that a little bit more, because over the course of years, as you're honing your craft and you're getting a really good perspective on the industry with really reputable companies, there had to be a point at which you decided that education and training was just kind of something you wanted to put roots down in with this endeavor. Were there particular moments, or was that just sort of a gradual realization?
Well, I think we've just gained so many different perspectives and have had the opportunity to experience so many different amazing coffees with so many different companies and roasters. And it's really just honing in back to the basics and realizing that, we are still such a new industry and that we still have so much potential just to learn the basics of coffee.
I think to add on that, as far as training goes and our trajectory to this point, it's those little moments of sharing knowledge and getting that glimpse of somebody really getting excited, and recognizing that excitement that we had in the beginning when we were baristas, Mm-hmm. For me, I can remember being, a barista trainer and getting excited when the barista I was training, gets that tilt on the milk pitcher perfectly and can finally do that vortex, and then that muscle memory steps in and they're able to replicate that. So it's something about recognizing that needed consistency, and being able to train in a gentle and compassionate way where mistakes happen and mistakes are a learning tool, but in the grand scheme, it's about getting back to that initial excitement you get when all the information comes together and clicks, and that's the first step onto this pathway in coffee.
Yeah, I imagine you've seen the opposite be true, which I don't know, might be a motivator where people pick up bad habits and it sets their trajectory in a completely different way.
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely one of our main motivations. And, because we have been taught so many different styles from so many different amazing companies. And also we've just seen, so many different perspectives from competition. I mean, between Ant and I, we must have seen hundreds of different theories on how to brew or prepare. And really, it's most important to us to focus on those basics and and really look at taking away all those variables, and then once you have a good foundation, being able to move forward from there.
Right. It's like you have to know the rules before you can break them, right? We want everybody to be able to build up on their experiences and have that confidence to, make the mistakes and go through the trial and error and figure it out themselves. But we do see a lot of people trying to just run right out the gate, and it's very frustrating, and it fills a lot of people with self-doubt. And once you get into that mindset, it's very difficult to not be intimidated by this classwork or by the instructors. And we're all in the same boat here. We just want to learn as much about this subject, being especially coffee, as we can, because we love it. We have this passion for it.
And Ant really hit the nail on the head with, our one of our main focuses is teaching troubleshooting skills, whether it's in roasting or brewing or espresso. And, it's, we totally respect all the different methods and techniques out there, but teaching somebody how to troubleshoot their mistakes is a huge part of our education.
Right. We want people to be able to know what something is supposed to taste like, or if something is, say you had a bad batch, a botched roast, are you able to cup that and figure out what can you change? Was there something good that came out of that roast? How can you add that to your reference bank for future roast profiles? That sort of troubleshooting and problem solving thinking.
Yeah, it sounds like there's just a lot of foundational work that you kind of never outgrow, and that's where you all specialize and are passionate about.
Absolutely.
So you talk about your strengths that each of you have in teaching. I find it interesting when people talk about the strengths that they have. There's a certain amount of self-knowledge that you have to know that, I'm good at this particular set of, I can instruct you in X, Y, Z, and my partner is better in these areas. How does that self-knowledge really work into the training and really make a difference with what the student walks away with?
For me, I think that when you're talking about self-knowledge for the trainer and that being important, I really think that it's very important, right? Because it's allowing the educator the ability to be introspective and to recognize their own needs for further education, right? So it's going to allow that trainer to be able to question their own skill set and not become complacent in their knowledge, right? Always kind of furthering their own education. As far as personal strengths or my specific strengths when it comes to training in this facility, I've seen a lot of people struggle or students struggle with that self-doubt. And I just want to have a compassionate training facility that allows for mistakes. I want that trial and error. I want somebody to not even worry about failure, because there's always going to be a lesson to be learned from that. And I feel that if you come into a space with that sort of insecurity or just intimidation, you're not open 100% to the lesson in front of you as far as the education course. I think the student can get clouded by that self-doubt or the anticipation, or am I going to be able to really retain all of this knowledge? Because it is a lot of information all at once. But I think if we can go into these classes as more as like, this is just a step. This is a continuous path. Basically, you're going to always going to want more. Hopefully, if this is where you're going as far as furthering your education as a student, right? There's that sort of just want to learn as much as possible about a subject that you're passionate about, right? So I think for Snowdrift, what we're trying to do here is provide a very comfortable space where there's not that intimidation. The students are going to come in knowing that there's going to be potential for failure, and that the trial and error aspect of it is actually a focus of teaching. That's what we're going to be relying on is making those mistakes.
Do you feel like people come into the situation of training with insecurities just naturally, or is it something that they pick up from the industry that they feel insecure because others have maybe intimidated them into feeling that way?
Yeah, I think it's both, unfortunately. I think our industry is still really new. We have a lot of really young educators out there. That's not to say that everybody is or that everybody is insecure, but I do feel like there's not a lot of room to make a mistake. Like, I think because we're still in that, it's like the residue of, in the past where, roasters wouldn't talk about roast profiles. Roasters wouldn't talk about what are your blend components. It was a lot of secrecy, in coffee preparation. So I think we're just coming out of that where people are starting to realize it's okay to say that you don't know everything and own that, because I don't know everything, but because of that, I want to continue learning as much as I can, and I think for, our coursework, part of it is we really want to instill that into our students, that it's okay to not know all the answers. And it's okay to have a teacher also say that they don't know the answers, because it's the follow-up. What are you going to do after that?
Yeah, you teach them that. It seems like if they feel like it's okay to fail because that's part of the learning process, that's something they're going to pass on to people they influence later, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Kind of breaks the cycle. What are some of the most common insecurities that people have that you've seen over the years of training?
Well, as far as roasting goes, I think it's having to follow a specific roast profile straight out the gate, and being afraid of wavering to either side, or trying something that is different to the norm, as far as, is it your airflow or drum speed or drop temperature, just not coming in with, this is a too light or too dark. I want to talk more about the aspects of the coffee. If we're talking about acidity, if we're talking about sweetness, I don't want to get bogged down with roast level, with roast profile, because there's things that you can experience in all of those profiles that are going to be good and bad. But, at the end of the day, a lot of it's just subjective preference.
What about on the barista end, as you've had experience in talking with different people wanting to have, a lot of skills and competition level skill right off the bat? I'm sure there's some things that they're really afraid of failing in, that maybe they're putting more emphasis on it than they should.
Sure. I think on the barista end, a lot of the weaknesses come down to, using numbers. And I absolutely encourage timers and scales and all those things. But if you're relying on those numbers and not on your palate, I think that can cause a lot of anxiety when you're really not honing into the espresso, or you're really trusting your palate and the way that the coffee is looking. And you're not fully understanding what you are doing to that coffee and how you're affecting that coffee, and just looking at those numbers and not able to have total control.
There's a mysterious element to coffee too, isn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know. See, I mean, there's I don't want to say a romantic part about it, because that seems like that old 5 Italian bean blend secret thing again. But there is an element of getting to know the product that you're crafting that you can't actually attach metrics to.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's also something that can be intimidating to people that are new to the industry. Getting into that sensory side of things, talking more about the palate. One thing that I've found when doing like QC work and cupping with larger groups is, a lot of the times people get stuck with their word choice, their descriptors. Can I say grapefruit? Is that going to be the right term? Am I describing this the same way that everyone else at the table is? That, for a new person, it can be very, very intimidating. So what I would try to do with that is say, forget the score sheet. We're not even talking about that. Let's talk about what sort of memories, what sort of feelings are popping up as you taste this coffee. And then you can break it down from there. You know, you drink something and someone's like, oh man, this reminds me of fall at my grandmother's house. There's something crisp. I remember the fallen leaves that were piled up. My grandmother had, you know, this specific pine sol, you know, cleaner that she'd use in the kitchen. And then you'd start to pinpoint exactly the word choice that they were aiming for, but couldn't find on their own. So I think, again, just opening that up and making this space comfortable. You don't have to come in and know exactly, you know, how to score coffee. Like, we'll get to that point, but it's you have to crawl before you can walk, right? You have to do those baby steps first. It's all about the foundation.
That's excellent. Well put. And giving yourself grace in that process in freedom, maybe it enables you to do the same for the customer when they're having trouble describing a coffee.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, we always talk about bridging that gap between barista and customer, and how do we do that while still retaining our passion for this ingredient and respecting the coffee and all the work that goes to it. But, you know, one thing that we've realized out here, and I think this has been part of the journey, is when we tell somebody that we're in coffee, they're like, oh yeah, you know, I drink my coffee black, or I drink it with cream and sugar. It's like, there's always some sort of, yes, I like coffee, but I don't like it as like, I don't think I'm as passionate about coffee as some people. I know that there's this different world of specialty coffee, but I just want my coffee every day black or cream and sugar. And we're just like, that's great. That's great that you love coffee that much, that, you know, you're having it every day. You have it the way that you enjoy it. I mean, more power to you. That's a step in the right direction, you know?
We need you to keep drinking coffee, please.
Exactly.
So I have a question, I think, that is something I think about often in terms of education. When you're opening your space to a group of people and you're tailoring your education to each person's learning styles and needs, and everyone has their own past that provides different hang-ups for education, how do you give them this patient application of core principles that you're after in the midst of these different learning styles in limited time? How do you balance those tensions in the classroom setting?
Well, I mean, I think the very first thing that I do with every new student is take 5 minutes and really discuss with them what their goals for the class is, what is their reason for being there. And that can really help guide me in structuring that day and allowing me to provide the best information needed. You know, they might have come in for an intro barista class, but they might, you know, have more questions on just how to run the cafe, and being able to have those moments where one student might need to have more hands-on time with machine just practicing, and I can take that other student and have a discussion on how scheduling or ordering may go for the week.
And to add on that, I mean, I think both Rita and I are able to draw from our experiences as cafe managers, where we've all been in that boat where, hey, I need to get these shifts covered. I need this barista bar ready by whatever date, you know, and you're on bar making sure that person is solid and putting in that time. Mm. So I think with that experience, we've really been able to hone in on that quickly. We're able to get the information to the student in a way that is easy, but the most efficient way.
In some efficiently just giving them the information that's going to make an impact for them personally, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, I mean, I know it probably sounds like broken records, but really teaching the basics and not trying to get too much into theory.
What is the danger of applying a one-size-fits-all mentality to a group of people that you're bringing in for a training?
So I think with the issue that can happen with the one size fit all is you're not going to have a 100% cohesive group. There's going to be different learning styles. And what usually happens is the dynamic of the group shifts. You're going to have a handful of people that are going to be able to get on the machines or have the most input. And you're going to have those that kind of fall through the cracks. So I think what we're trying to do with having a smaller class size, so we're able to really focus on the individual students, is to ensure that doesn't happen. Somebody might need that physical interaction on the machine more than somebody that might need a little bit more time with the PowerPoint presentation. So that's up to us to recognize that. But again, I think with our history as trainers and educators and as managers, we're able to recognize learning styles relatively quickly.
That's something I think people create in their mind, like maybe catastrophize the splitting up of a group. Maybe there's chaos that they imagine is going to ensue if they pull somebody away from the group. Is that freedom that you feel to do that with a group just something a trainer learns over time and as they become confident in the material themselves?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you have the smaller class size, you're opening up to more discussions, honestly. And those are the discussions that usually end with the trainer and myself included in this group of just saying, I don't know the answer to that. But that's a really great question. Let's follow up and see what the answer is so we can both learn on this specific subject. I think that, if we're able to separate these groups, it's not necessarily diminishing their education as a group, because they're still going to be able to have those discussions. What we want to do is allow that space, because some people just don't like to roast with other people watching over their shoulder besides the instructor, So again, it's about making Snowdrift a very comfortable learning space.
Is this all complicated? Is coffee complicated, or is that a misperception?
I think absolutely. Coffee absolutely can be complicated. I had the perception that coffee was complicated before I started in the industry. I think that one of our main motivations, though, is with Snowdrift is that our motivation is to make coffee less complicated and to really focus on those basics that we've been talking about and creating a good foundation, and it's all too often that we'll see, new competitors come in, with the hottest new techniques or equipment, but they don't have those basic techniques for creating a good beverage. And, I think when you can work on your fundamentals and take away those variables, so when you actually are only changing one variable, that's when you take away that complication and you really can begin to understand what you're doing.
When we are in a position of education, which a lot of us are going to be, no matter if we have the title of trainer or not, we always feel a certain mantle of responsibility to shape the career of another barista. You could be a shift lead, or you could be the most senior barista on staff, and you're gonna end up training somebody at some point in your career. I wonder, what would you say are maybe some fundamentals that trainers, especially new trainers, should really keep in mind and focus on for the benefit of their own development and also the people they're training?
I think number one would be being okay with not knowing everything. Being okay with saying, I don't know the answer. I think there's a tendency to, again, have to know all the answers that your students are going to bring to you. And that's not the case. And that might actually stifle you as a trainer down the line.
How so?
Well, potentially you might not, be as driven to further your education and get to know more if you're just complacent with the level of your skill set at that particular time.
So not knowing everything is okay. you will get to know more as you go on. And what else should we be focusing on if we want to effectively educate, people that we are given charge over as trainers?
I mean, again, it's touching upon those troubleshooting skills, being able to understand, what happened because of that mistake you made and how you can fix it. Was my coffee under extracted because my grind was too coarse, or, whether it's roasting, if it's unfortunately, I don't know much about roasting, so I can't speak to the mistakes but being able to taste through what's happening and understand why your coffee is tasting that way, and to be able to make those changes from there. Or, sorry.
Well, I was gonna add on to that as well. Actually, is what my advice for new trainers, or at least anybody in that educational side of specialty coffee, is I hope that more people open up to being mentors in whatever that means, in the sense of the word. I feel like with my background, I'm very grateful to have had a lot of role models in coffee and be able to glean a lot of this information from people that have been in the industry for decades. So, moving forward, I'm hoping that this next generation can do the same thing, because there's still going to be new people coming into coffee, and we should be able to provide them with this knowledge that we've learned over the years as well. And also instill that, the idea of, teaching without knowing all the answers.
And really opening yourself up for questions. I mean, some of the best trainers I have weren't even technically my trainers. They were just colleagues in the industry that made themselves approachable enough for me to be able to ask them questions openly.
It's sort of like a conversational approach to the unfolding of your career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nice. So what would you say you would hope that somebody would walk away feeling when they walk away from a training at Snowdrift?
Well, I'd hope that the student would feel confident in their skills to do trial and error, to have enough of the foundations in place to know I'm going to taste this, and I can make a decision depending on what I taste, what's on my palate. I think that's the key for my side, especially for roasting, is being comfortable with failure, with potential failure, and realizing that with every mistake, it's just an opportunity to learn something new.
Absolutely.
I think that what you guys are saying right now has so been needed in the industry. Just from my perspective, it rings true that we can make complications for ourselves that are unnecessary. And even, years and years later, myself 18 years later in the industry, it's like the basics are always relevant, and troubleshooting is always, you never outgrow it.
No. Sometimes it takes you a little bit of time to make that full circle,
Yeah, sometimes failures take years.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's next for Snowdrift? What are you guys excited about and working on right now?
Well, right now we're really excited that we're able to offer a no-cost, intros to roasting class for members of the LGBTQ community. Again, as a way to kind of pay it forward, provide, share the knowledge that we've gleaned over the years to people that might not be able to afford other classes or have that opportunity provided to them by their current employer.
So that mentoring.
Exactly.
That's a very generous offer. Yeah.
And then, we're finishing up build out over the winter. And then right now we're gearing up for launching our online store and preparing for the farmers market in spring.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Things are kind of in hibernation there, I bet, right now, and it's going to melt and y'all are going to be really busy.
Pretty much. It's application time, though.
Oh, yeah. We're feeling it now. It might be cold and dead outside, but like we're heated up inside, ready to go.
A lot's happening under the ground. Are there really snow drifts up there right now?
Last week.
There were, but not anymore. We got a little bit of a heat wave, and that melted everything.
Well, this has really been a sweet time. I've really enjoyed hearing your wisdom and all you're doing to, just educate the next generation of coffee professionals. Your generous view of coffee is sorely needed. So thank you for spending time with me today. And how can we keep in touch with Snowdrift and apply for some classes?
Absolutely. You can find us on Instagram at Snowdrift Coffee. Our website is snowdriftcoffee.com, and via email, you can reach out at info@snowdriftcoffee.com.
And all of our classes are online on our website. And we will post when we are in the market season where we'll be located on our event page.
Sweet. Well, we'll link to all of those things in the show notes for this episode. And thank you so much again for joining us on the show.
Oh,
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
I love the rooted and practical approach that Ant and Rita shared here in this conversation. And I'm super jealous of anyone who gets to be trained by them, honestly. The foundational elements that they're talking about, and we keep coming back to in this conversation, the foundational elements, the things that are just at the base of coffee knowledge that we all have to keep kind of relearning as we go. When you have that as the foundation of your educational process in the thing that really drives you and you're passionate about, everything built from there, I think you can vouch for, and have faith that those who are bringing you through an educational pathway or a course on roasting or barista work, as they do at Snowdrift, you're being mentored by and taught by people who possess not only information and knowledge, but wisdom, which there's a huge difference between the two. And I think Ant and Rita have a lot of wisdom between the two of them. So I, for one, have been really encouraged by this conversation. They certainly have a busy year planned, with this being application time for their company and the very generous offer to the LGBTQ community, the farmers markets that they're going to be involved with. Sounds like a really packed year, and I would encourage you to make contact with them, see if you can get in for some of these trainings and education. Reach out to them at snowdriftcoffee.com. I'll provide links in the show notes, of course, and I hope you get in to get some training with them. And my thanks to Ant and Rita for joining me on the show. Y'all were amazing, and I wish you the best. So that's all for today. Please do take this information that you learned today and apply it to your career. Meditate on the words of these two industry veterans when they talk about focusing on foundational elements of coffee, focusing on being able to bravely step into learning. And it's okay to make mistakes, even if you're the trainer. That kind of humility and forward progress in learning is going to put you in a way better position in the future, even though maybe right now it feels a little bit awkward and you don't see yourself doing as well as you'd like to do. Keep coming back to those essentials, keep making forward progress, and before you know it, you're going to have a really solid and unshakable skill set based in the fundamentals. So thank you so much for listening, being fans of the show. A reminder to you, if you want the show notes delivered to your inbox, there's an opportunity to do so when you go to keystotheshop.com. A little box will pop up and you just put your email in and I will send you the show notes in email form, along with the links mentioned in the show and other resources related to the topic of the show and news about Keys to the Shop and what's coming up. We've got some pretty cool things coming up this year that I will be announcing through social media soon, but have already announced through the email So definitely sign up for that. And I hope to see you all at Coffee Fest too. If you live in Baltimore, Denver, or LA, Coffee Fest is coming to your city, and I'm speaking there as well as judging latte art. So come by, say hello. I hope that you're able to hear me speak. Otherwise, it would just be really awesome to meet you. And you can find out more about the dates and stuff at coffeefest.com. And that's it. So thanks again. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.